After a day of massive upheaval in the boardroom at Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, the transfer rumours keep ramping up apace as talk is of bids for 2 full England internationals at Spurs. Meanwhile, Man United and Chelsea continue not to care about potential PSR constraints as they bid for numerous players, and Manchester City are going again as Pep looks to rebuild. I'll be discussing all that and talk of Tottenham potentially being taken over in today's daily Premier League transfer news. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I just need to start with a bit of an apology to Spurs fans watching. I did my previous video that came out yesterday late on Sunday night, and all the reports were at that time that Ange was going to be sacked imminently. So I really felt strongly that was going to happen probably at 9 a.m. on Monday morning. So I did a video late Sunday night. I didn't say he'd been sacked in the video. I said all the talk was of him being sacked, but the thumbnail did say sacked on it without a question mark. And I know that riled up a load of people talking about clickbait, so I apologise for that. But I hope if you watch the video, you'll see that I wasn't jumping the gun in saying he'd definitely been sacked. I was talking about how it looked likely and giving my thoughts on it. But yeah, just a little apology to anybody who was riled up by that. I apologise. If you're watching this, please do give this video a like. Please do subscribe to the channel if you're not already for daily Premier League transfer news over the summer. Always starting, of course, with my club, Tottenham Hotspur. So let's get started there. All reports are now that Angel Gomez, the Lille player and England defensive central midfielder, is keen to join Tottenham over and above all of the other clubs that he has been speaking to. There have been reports that he was speaking to West Ham, to Manchester United, amongst others, and obviously he used to play for Manchester United before going over to France and being repositioned into that central defensive midfield role. But apparently he only wants to come to Spurs, and as a free transfer, I've been talking for quite a while about how I feel like that's probably a no-brainer. I really like him as a player, very cultured on the ball. Very important in modern-day football that he's one of those players who always wants to receive the ball on the half-turn. He's always calling for it from his goalkeeper or from the centre-backs, and we certainly need more players like that at Spurs. My big worry about Angel Gomez is just the lack of physicality. He's very small, very thin, realistically, just not a lot of him. And realistically, even though he was at Manchester United, he didn't play many Premier League games for United. So it will remain to be seen, basically, whether he has the physicality to play at that top level in England. But on a free transfer, it is a no-brainer. He will be asking for, I'm sure, upwards of 100 grand a week. But I think Daniel Levy will be happy to pay him that if he does come to the club. Let me know in the comments what you think about Angel Gomez. Okay, Bayern Munich are willing, apparently, to renegotiate with Daniel Levy for Matthias Tell's departure. Obviously, Spurs have a really good relationship with Bayern Munich as a result of the Harry Kane deal, as a result of the friendly matches that have been put in place because of that Harry Kane deal. In fact, as far as I'm aware, there is a friendly due to be played between Spurs and Bayern just a few days before what is now the European Super Cup match between Tottenham Hotspur and Paris Saint-Germain. Never did I think I'd be saying that. But anyway, Bayern are willing to demand less than the agreed release clause, which was 55 million euros. And apparently they would be willing to drop that to 35 million euros, which is about 30 million pounds. According to Plettigol, very respected journalist in Germany, Tottenham do want to keep Tell. And a new idea being discussed, as well as potentially dropping that fee, is another loan deal with a loan fee being paid to Bayern Munich by Spurs and then an obligation to buy. Bayern Munich would prefer a permanent sale, but of course, Daniel Levy, as ever, trying to get his pound of flesh with as much of a good deal as possible. And for any of you kind of not having heard this on my channel before or any of the other Spurs channels, Bayern Munich keen to do business with Spurs on this one because they still have a lot of money still to pay for Harry Kane. And of course, now that he's won the Bundesliga and has been their top scorer for 2 seasons in a row, a lot of those clauses that came as part of the deal are being hit by Harry Kane, and therefore more and more money is being owed to Spurs by Bayern. I guess the only one really left to hit is if Bayern were to win the Champions League. Maybe there'd be one as well if Bayern win the World Club Cup, which I assume they're in. Although now that I've said it, I'm not sure. Let me know in the comments if Bayern are in the World Club Cup. Not sure about that. Matthias Tell did come out yesterday with some quotes about Spurs, and as far as I'm concerned, they make it seem pretty obvious that he's incredibly keen to stay at Tottenham. He's kind of bought into what's happening at the club. He said, the story, talking about the Europa League, was incredible for the club and the fans. I'm very happy. We did it and we deserve it. I'm playing football and playing to win trophies, so I believe in this team, this club, and that's why we did it. This is a big family with the fans, with everyone. It's not just a club, it's everything for us. We have to keep going and win again. And actually, going back to what I said about the World Club Cup, I'm pretty sure there was some talk about potentially Tell going back to Bayern in time for that World Club Cup, so they must be playing in it. Okay, as you could see from the thumbnail of this video, Everton are telling suitors that Jared Branthwaite is not for sale this summer. However, Spurs are expected to bid for the young English centre-back. Although right now, and this is according to Mail Sport, their priority is deciding on the future of Ange Postecoglou. Spurs hold a strong interest in Branthwaite, and it's believed Everton would demand £50 million for his signature. Now, there have been reports, of course, that Richarlison is interesting Everton in terms of bringing him back to the club to kind of spearhead their move to the new stadium. I wonder if there could be a deal to be done there with Richarlison, who I love, by the way, as a player at Tottenham, but just does not get on the pitch regularly enough, gets injured far too much. So I wonder if Everton would be willing to kind of say they'd go to 25, 30 million pounds for Richarlison, and then Tottenham just say, okay, well, we'll give you 20 on top for Jared Branthwaite. I do like the player, but all these reports of centre-backs that Spurs are interested in makes it, to me, more and more likely that Ange Postecoglou is going to leave the club imminently in the next hours or days. And Christian Romero, who has said that his future will be linked to Ange Postecoglou's, will follow him out of the club. And that is probably why Mark Gahey is also still seen as the top candidate for the centre-back option at Spurs, but he is apparently not keen on a move to North London. That might be because of his previous Chelsea roots. Okay, now moving on to talk more about the latest with Ange Postecoglou. A report from Alistair Gold came out yesterday saying that some within the club, within Tottenham Hotspur, did not understand Postecoglou's decision to prioritise the Europa League once he felt that his injury-ravaged Spurs squad could not achieve anything in the Premier League or get relegated. Now, I've seen on social media that this report from Ali Gold has upset a number of the Spurs fan base, saying this kind of sums up Daniel Levy. Let's just say that Alistair Gold didn't say it was Daniel Levy himself. He said that it was some within Tottenham didn't understand it. And of course, and I'll talk about this more in a bit, there was some boardroom upheaval yesterday within the club. So perhaps there has been some disconnect between the three directors in terms of what the planning was last year. I'd be surprised if in hindsight, with us winning the Europa League, anybody in hindsight thought it was the wrong plan. But yeah, like I said, some Spurs fans saying, oh, this is classic Tottenham Hotspur, classic Daniel Levy, not understanding us wanting to go for silverware, even though it gave us, in hindsight, our greatest day in our lives, certainly those of my age or younger, of our lives supporting Tottenham Hotspur. Also, of course, mad good timing in terms of all the reports coming out that Ange is about to be sacked. Ange does a media interview for Australian media in Greece, where he's on holiday. And he said the following: I had no doubt that for me, the mission when I joined Tottenham Hotspur was to win a trophy. It became, well, we've got this opportunity in Europe. What do we do about that? Making the final was, I guess for me anyway, a real vindication of the road we had taken. A final of a significant tournament, an opportunity to create history. We're talking about a club who had lost 3 finals in the last 17 years and had made 8 or 9 semi-finals. That's not a great record in big games, so there were a lot of nervous people around the club, trust me, who were fearing the worst. Probably our supporters as well. I just want to break into those quotes there. I absolutely agree with what Ange Postecoglou is saying there, and I feel like it's kind of a little bit unsaid in the press and in the punditry. All the press right now, all the pundits across all the broadcasters are talking about whether Ange should stay or not, but not many of them talking about how he dragged us across the line in a big game, in a final, in a semi-final. And you've got to say that out of all those managers previous to him, you can go back to Harry Redknapp, Pochettino, Mourinho and Conte. I guess out of them, the only one who did get us to a final and then we didn't see whether he would drag us across the line in the final was Mourinho, because he was sacked in that week before the final. Interesting that Postecoglou learnt from that lesson, didn't he? Because so many fans got on his back down the years for having sacked Mourinho before that League Cup. And I feel like one of the main reasons he sacked Mourinho then was because he was afraid that he might win the League Cup and therefore he wouldn't be able to sack him afterwards when he felt like the football was so poor and the league form was poor. This time he stuck with Postecoglou. He did win that, and that is what is putting Daniel Levy in that terribly difficult position now, where it's clear to me with this time between the win of the final and now that Levy is desperate to sack Postecoglou, but he's also absolutely cacking himself over how a portion of the Spurs fan base will react. Ange Postecoglou went on to say, 2 Premier League teams playing together in a European final. It doesn't get any bigger than that, I don't think. This was the one game on the planet that night. You know the whole world is watching. When we sat down 10 years ago and did the initial Australian story, which is the media broadcast that he was doing this interview for, he said, I think maybe even you guys thought that was the culmination of what I was about to achieve. What I do know is that in 10 years' time, if we sit down again, I've got no doubt in my mind that there'll be more stories to tell. There will be more trophies that have been won. Postecoglou then explained that when he is under pressure and the noise around him is at its loudest, that is when he rises to the top. He said, it's when I'm at my best because I like pushing through that stuff. It's an opportunity to convince that I haven't got here by accident. I mean, he's such an elite orator that even as a fan, where I do have my doubts as to whether he can really do it in the Premier League and whether he will be willing to change his style to suit the Premier League, I believe him when I listen to this stuff. I believe that he can kind of recalibrate next season and get into those players with his brilliant talking. Like I've said it earlier this season, people thought I was mental, but I watched the Alex Ferguson documentary on iPlayer, and Ferguson was just as bad as Postecoglou was in his first few years in the old First Division, what was the Premier League. And then he won the FA Cup, and then it was a change of mentality that took Manchester United on to where they went, as well as obviously some investment. And I do think there's a chance that if Levy sticks with Postecoglou, that something similar could happen at Spurs. I really do. Let me know what you think in the comments. The Spurs boss also spoke about his anger ahead of the final when he hit back at a reporter who'd written that the result of the game would decide whether he was seen as a hero or a clown, and said this, I'm a human being. Do I get angry sometimes? Do I get frustrated? Do I get disappointed? Of course I do. But what I will always do is call out people who I think have got it wrong. And that's fair. You know, I've said it a few times on here, but I've been described as reactive particularly by Ange Postecoglou fans on here, but Ange Postecoglou there admitting that he gets reactive as well. He reacts to things. He changes his mind on things. He gets upset. And when you're talking about your football club, your passion, what is almost most important to you in your life, of course you get reactive. Of course you get frustrated. So if Ange can get reactive, of course all we fans can as well. Postecoglou is used to, Ali Gold said this, he's used to people mocking him along his journey, including when he was at Celtic, when radio pundit Alan Brazil struggled to pronounce his name when he was first linked with the job and thought it was a prank. Ange said this, I've grown up in a schoolyard in Australia with a long surname, so trust me, I've heard every variation. Nothing they were going to say was going to upset me. He said, when I was lying in my bed as a 9 or 10-year-old, what were the visions I was having? The Premier League was it for me. It was where I wanted to see myself one day. That was the dream for sure. And then he was asked about his declaration at the trophy parade where he said the third season is always better than the second. He said, I didn't want us to just enjoy the moment. I also wanted us to think about what's next. You know, don't settle for this, he explained. We've got a taste of it now. My players have got a taste for it. The club has a taste for it. Well, let's make sure we're back here again. Listen, I'm recording this at near 10 a.m. on Tuesday morning. As of yet, no decision has been publicly made about Postecoglou. All the reports, like I said, on Sunday night was that he was going to get the bullet. I was readying myself for that. But then yesterday, the kind of bombshell that the first announcements in the kind of changes at Tottenham Hotspur were that Donna Cullen has stood down from the Tottenham Hotspur board and left the club. She was, of course, the right-hand woman of Chairman Daniel Levy. Donna Marie Cullen said this, this has been such a hard decision to make. The club has been my life for the past 3 decades. I've had the privilege of working with Daniel, whose vision and energy has driven the club forward, and so many talented and wonderful colleagues. It has been quite some journey, starting at White Hart Lane with a brief stay at Wembley and finally our new home. Amazing memories home and away. Ending the season with the Europa League trophy was a dream come true. And she goes on to talk about it being the right time for her and her family. Now, obviously, as ever, there have been conflicting reports about this. I will say that down the years, people have got more and more frustrated with Donna Marie Cullen, thinking she was just kind of a yes person to Daniel Levy and that we needed more people around Levy who were able to kind of keep him in check. Well, those of you who feel that way, then you will be pleased about that. I have to say, I don't know. Let's see. I don't really know what Donnelly Cullen did on a day-to-day basis, but I do kind of agree that if we're going to make genuine change for good at Tottenham Hotspur, then we probably need new voices within the boardroom. And then there have been these reports yesterday that the other director, Collicott, I think his name is, that he might well be leaving as well. His details have been changed at Company's House. And some reports coming out that this might be readying the club for a takeover. I did hear a report in the last few weeks that there is a good chance, apparently, that a takeover might be completed towards the beginning of the new season. And then other reports, I was listening to the Fighting Cock with Flav yesterday, and he and Mbuemo were talking about how there was, some kind of whispers around that something big is in the offing for Tottenham Hotspur. For me, I could only imagine that it would be something like a Qatari-based investment, if that was to be the case. It feels like Levy and ENIC have been readying the club for American investment down the years, but there's been no talk about that. And obviously, as ever, there are conflicting reports over what is going to happen. But I guess let's watch this space. Like I said, Company's House has listed a change in director details also for Matthew Collicott, the other director, alongside Cullen and Daniel Levy. Matt Law said yesterday, he's a reputable journalist, that Cullen's departure is expected to be the start of a shake-up that is far-reaching, and sources believe the shake-up could be the prelude to fresh funds being pumped into the club, either by ENIC or in the form of outside investment. Well, ENIC, other than a kind of £150 million share bond issue during the Conte years, they don't like to invest money in the club. So I would say it is less likely to be them than potentially outside investment. Let's see what happens. I mean, let me know what you think, but surely, with having just won a major European trophy, going into the European Super Cup final, the new stadium is now paying itself off. The training ground looks great. So the infrastructure is all there. Maybe now is the right time, and is the reality that Daniel Levy has now seen some silverware come through the door during his tenure. And he has previously always said, I will not leave until we have some success at this club. Is he now more willing to leave the club? And that has been the sticking point in terms of getting investment into the club, because he has always been keen to then say he wants to stay on as chairman, no matter who comes in. Maybe now he's more willing to relinquish the reins, and therefore a takeover could be imminent. Okay, I'll just finish off the Spurs news from yesterday. Ryan Mason has got the job as the new West Brom manager. That is really good news for him. I think that will also take away some of the angry fan base who, for some reason, which I don't agree with, have been blaming Ryan Mason for the bad Premier League form just because he's been there for years. Well, let's see if Ryan Mason can go and do a job at West Brom. And I think there's also an opportunity there for some Spurs academy players to probably go to West Brom, either on loan or on permanent moves, to bring some money into the club. So I think that's an interesting move, and I will be certainly keeping an eye on how Ryan Mason does, because he is a great ambassador for Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, and I've been really disappointed with some of the fans getting on him. He was a great player at Spurs, came up through the academy, made the most of himself, wasn't by any means the most talented player of all time, but worked his nuts off and became an England international, and then obviously suffered that horror injury which ended his career far too early. And finally, Mickey van der Ven, a little quote from Mickey van der Ven when he was asked in an interview whether he looks back on PSG having shown interest in him before he moved to Spurs, and looks back at it with regret. He says, I'm not looking at that now. I'm very much in my element at Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. Mickey van der Ven, Rolls-Royce defender. And one of the reasons why I think, we've got exciting young players at the club, and if we can just change the way we train and change the intensity a little bit of which we play our football at, we can keep him on the pitch, keep Richarlison on the pitch, keep all of our best players like Romero as well on the pitch far more regularly, and therefore I think still we have the squad to push that top four next season. Anyway, I'm going to move on to more wide-ranging Premier League transfer news. Before I do, if you're watching this video and you haven't already, please do press that like button. Let's get it seen by as many people as possible. And please do press that subscribe button if you're not already a subscriber to my channel. Daily Premier League transfer news, and always starting with my team, Tottenham Hotspur, and all their news there. Okay, I'll rush through this transfer news. Man City are apparently considering letting John Stones leave to Everton this summer. John Stones is still a Rolls-Royce of a player, but he gets too injured too regularly. If he had a bit of a better injury record, he's someone I'd be willing to take at Spurs, that is for sure. But apparently he is available this summer. Some other bad news if you're a Spurs fan, they are also, Man City, pursuing a deal for Ryan El-Nouri from Wolves. City buying very cleverly this summer. Agreements still need to be reached, according to David Ornstein, between the clubs and the player. However, all parties expect that move to happen. El-Nouri will be an excellent player for Manchester City. Fabrizio Romano agrees that negotiations to advance soon between City and Wolves for the left back. Also, Man City have opted against including McAtee in their squad for the Club World Cup, which could open the door apparently for a move to Manchester United, but he is also on Tottenham's list. Big news this morning, huge breaking news that Bruno Fernandes has turned down a move to Saudi Arabia, which would have earned him as much as £200 million and would have earned Manchester United over £100 million. And I think it's fair to say that United will be a little devastated that they can't get that money through the door because they want that money badly. It'll be interesting to me to see whether any English clubs or any of the big Spanish clubs try and test the waters with a £100 million bid for Fernandes. He is that good, but he is 29, so probably not. It's probably only Saudi who would be willing to pay that money for a 29-year-old. But I think that will affect Manchester United's abilities to pay for more players in this window. They've obviously already brought in Cunha. The next one is that Brian Mbuemo announced last night through agents and leaking that he has decided he wants to join Man United and that he wants Brentford to do a deal with them for the 25-year-old forward this summer. That's a shame because Newcastle and Spurs and Arsenal were also interested in him, but he has chosen United. Interesting one. United also apparently interested in buying a Estupiñán from Brighton. That's according to Ben Jacobs, another reputable journalist. And Alejandro Garnacho, who is seemingly definitely going to leave Manchester United this summer, is keen to stay in the Premier League over joining Napoli, who are keen to buy him. Conte wants him there. He has his eyes set on a move to Chelsea. Chelsea just sweeping up young talent at the moment. I got a text from a mate of mine today who'd only just found out that Chelsea sold their women's team to themselves for an overinflated valuation of £200 million and sold hotels to themselves. It is embarrassing. I think the Premier League should be utterly ashamed of themselves that they have loopholes that have allowed those deals to happen. It is embarrassing how Chelsea are breaking all of the rules and getting away with it. Apparently Newcastle will look to sign Jack Grealish from Man City. That is if Anthony Gordon were to move on this summer, with Liverpool potentially interested in Gordon. Chelsea, as I said, interested in every young player. They are talking to Borussia Dortmund over Jamie Gittins, the young English winger, and hope to wrap up a deal before the Club World Cup. How many wingers do Chelsea need? Although there were some reports yesterday that Noni Madueke is available from Chelsea, which I'm surprised at because he is a raw talent, but he has done well at Chelsea considering his age and all the pressure there. Over to Villa, Leon Bailey is going to move to Saudi Arabia for £25 million. Everton are also keen on signing Brighton midfielder Matt O'Reilly, the ex-Celtic player, but do face competition from other European clubs. And finally, over at South London Woolwich, they've opened talks with Barcelona, or at least Thomas Partey has opened talks with Barcelona over a free transfer because his contract expires this month. And I think Arsenal would probably be keen to get him out the door whilst he is on police bail. If you don't know what that's all about, just Google it. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of Premier League Transfer News. Please do press like if you haven't already. Please do subscribe to the channel. And also, you can listen to this over in the podcast platforms when you're out walking the dog or running. Just go over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify, type in the Spurred On podcast, and come and give me a subscribe or a follow there. I would really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, guys. Let's hope for some more exciting rumours today. I'm sure there will be, and maybe even some news on Big Ange Postecoglou. Cheers.